Every word that leaves your mouth, especially when spoken inwardly to yourself, carries the invisible weight of creation. Words are not just sounds, they are seeds planted deep into the soil of your subconscious mind. Every statement you make about yourself begins to germinate, grow roots, and eventually bear fruit in the reality you live. When you say, I can't, you plant the seed of limitation. When you say, I can, you plant the seed of possibility. And what you continue to water with repetition becomes the garden of your life. Many people underestimate the quiet power of self-talk. They believe transformation begins in action, but before any act comes a word, and before every word comes a thought. Thoughts take form through language, and language shapes experience. This means your internal dialogue is not a passive background noise. It's the foundation of who you are becoming. You are both the speaker and the listener, the teacher and the student. What you say about yourself in silence will always shout through the way you live. Think of your mind as fertile soil, always ready to grow whatever you plant. The soil doesn't discriminate between good or bad seeds. It simply grows what it's given. If you plant seeds of doubt, fear, and inadequacy, your mind will faithfully grow them into patterns of hesitation, insecurity, and stagnation. But if you plant seeds of confidence, growth, and faith, your mind will produce clarity, courage, and consistent progress. You are the gardener of your mental landscape. The only question is, what are you planting? In education, we often talk about input and output. Whatever input you give the system determines the quality of the output. The same is true of your brain. When you constantly input negative self-talk, I'm not good enough, I'll never make it, this is too hard, you are programming your mind to deliver those same outcomes. You begin to act in alignment with those beliefs, often unconsciously. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, not because fate is cruel, but because you have trained your own mind to expect failure. This is why the first transformation anyone must make is in language. Before you change your actions, you must change your affirmations. Before you shift your habits, you must shift your vocabulary. Speaking life means consciously choosing words that empower you rather than imprison you. It means saying, I'm learning, instead of, I don't know. It means saying, I'm in process, instead of, I'm not there yet. It's not about pretending life is perfect. It's about directing your thoughts toward growth, even when things are imperfect. Now, speaking life is not wishful thinking. It's a discipline, a mental exercise in training your focus. When you speak life, you are not ignoring your challenges. You are choosing not to let them define your identity. You can acknowledge struggle and still affirm strength. You can admit mistakes and still declare growth. The key is balance, recognizing your current reality while keeping your words aligned with your desired future. Let's look at it from a scientific perspective. Neuroscience tells us that the brain responds to language patterns through a process called neuroplasticity, the ability of neural networks to rewire themselves based on repeated thoughts and experiences. In simple terms, what you repeatedly tell yourself literally changes the structure of your brain. If you continuously say, I'm not good at math, your brain starts to strengthen the neural pathways associated with avoidance, anxiety, and low performance in mathematical tasks. But if you begin saying, I'm improving at math every day, your brain begins forming new pathways for focus, curiosity, and confidence. The shift begins not in the classroom or in the textbook, but in the silent sentences you say to yourself. The same is true emotionally. Words generate emotions, and emotions influence actions. When your inner language is filled with self-doubt, your body feels it, your posture drops, your energy declines, your decisions become cautious. But when your self-talk becomes positive and intentional, your physiology changes. You breathe deeper. You hold yourself taller. You take bolder steps. This is not imagination, it's chemistry. Positive words trigger the release of dopamine and serotonin. the same chemicals linked to motivation and happiness. Speaking life literally makes your brain more capable of joy and success. But here's where education meets transformation. You cannot speak life once and expect results forever. Just as a seed requires daily water, your words must be consistent. Repetition is the fertilizer of belief. You must make it a habit, not a moment. Talk to yourself in the morning before the world talks to you. Speak to your goals before doubt speaks to your fears. Remind yourself of who you are before others try to define you. This is what Myron Golden emphasizes, that personal development begins with internal dialogue. Repeat it until it becomes identity. Let's consider an example. Imagine two students preparing for the same exam. Both have studied the same material. Both have the same level of intelligence. But one keeps saying, "I'm just not smart enough for this," while the other says, "I can handle this. I just need to stay focused." When the test begins, their outcomes will differ not because of ability, but because of belief. The one who spoke limitation entered the exam already defeated. The one who spoke life entered empowered. The difference lies in the words they planted long before they picked up their pens. This principle applies to every area: education, relationships, business, health, and faith. Whatever you tell yourself daily will eventually define your capacity. Your words become mental instructions that your subconscious mind follows. When you tell yourself, "I'm tired of trying," your brain begins to shut down its creative energy. But when you say, "I'm learning something valuable through this challenge," your brain searches for lessons and opportunities instead. That's the power of intentional speech. Educators, leaders, and learners alike must understand that the classroom of the mind never closes. Every thought is a lecture. Every word is a lesson. And every belief is an exam you either pass or fail through your own dialogue. To speak life is to become the teacher of your own transformation. It's to remind yourself daily that the voice inside you is the first curriculum of success. So when you wake up tomorrow, notice your first words. Are they of gratitude or complaint? Are they words of possibility or words of pressure? The moment you open your mouth, you begin shaping the day. If you say, "Today will be difficult," your brain prepares for stress. But if you say, "Today will be an opportunity to grow," your brain opens itself to creativity and resilience. Your language decides your lens. Speaking life also requires responsibility. It's easy to say positive words for others. It's harder to say them for yourself. But the goal of education is empowerment, not dependence. When you learn to educate your own thinking, to challenge negative thoughts and replace them with constructive truth, you move from being a follower of motivation to a creator of it. And that's what talking to yourself really means. It's not about ego or arrogance, it's about alignment. It's the discipline of teaching your mind what your spirit already knows, that you were created with purpose, equipped with potential, and capable of extraordinary growth. Every sentence you speak to yourself is a lesson in either faith or fear, and whichever one you repeat becomes your reality. So choose wisely. Your words are building your tomorrow. Every I can't becomes a wall. Every I can becomes a door. The architecture of your destiny begins in the language you use today. Speak life, water your vision, educate your thoughts, and watch the garden of your future begin to grow from the seeds you speak in the present. The human mind is a reflection chamber. Whatever thoughts you feed it consistently, it echoes back through your beliefs, and those beliefs eventually sculpt your behavior. Self-conversation, therefore, is not a small act of mental chatter. It is the architect of your inner world. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes what you inwardly believe, and what you believe becomes what you automatically do. Think about it. Every person lives within the boundaries of their beliefs. Those beliefs are like invisible fences around potential. Some people walk freely toward new opportunities because they believe they can, while others stand still in fear because they believe they cannot. But neither group is born that way. Their beliefs were built, and one of the main builders is the voice they listen to most, their own. In education and psychology, there is a concept known as self-efficacy, introduced by Albert Bandura. It refers to the belief in one's ability to succeed in specific situations. Bandura discovered that when individuals consistently affirm their ability to act, solve, and persevere, they actually perform better. In contrast, those who constantly doubt themselves underperform, even when they have the same level of intelligence or skill. This is the practical science behind the truth Myron Golden teaches, that your consistent self-conversation shapes belief, and belief builds behavior. To understand this deeply, imagine belief as the blueprint of a house and behavior as the structure built upon it. You cannot construct strong actions on weak beliefs. If your internal blueprint says, I am not capable, then no matter how much you try to act strong, the behavior will eventually collapse under doubt. But if your internal blueprint says, I am capable, I can adapt, I can grow, then every action you take will be reinforced by confidence, not fear. The conversation you have with yourself is the drafting process. Every word, every thought, every repetition shapes the design. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. It's not what you tell yourself once in a while that transforms you. It's what you say to yourself every day. A single motivational phrase might lift you for a moment, but consistent internal dialogue builds belief that lasts. Just like the gym strengthens your muscles through repetition, self-conversation strengthens your mind through repetition. Belief is mental muscle. It grows through use. Let's consider a real example. Two students decide to learn a new language. The first says to herself, "This is so hard, I'll never remember these words." The second says, "This is challenging, but I'm improving each time I practice." After a month, both have faced the same lessons, the same mistakes, and the same frustrations, but their outcomes are different. The first student feels drained, disinterested, and ready to quit. The second feels encouraged, capable, and curious. The only difference lies in their self-conversation. Over time, that conversation became a belief. One believed, I can. The other believed, I can't. And belief always instructs behavior. In behavioral psychology, this phenomenon is sometimes described as the belief-behavior loop. It begins with self-talk. Your thoughts and words create belief. Those beliefs influence your actions. Your actions then produce results which reinforce your beliefs even further. This loop can work for you or against you. Negative self-talk produces weak belief produces hesitant action, and hesitant action produces poor results, which then confirm your initial negative thought. On the other hand, positive self-talk strengthens belief. Strong belief fuels bold action, and bold action produces better results, which reinforce confidence. The key difference lies in how you talk to yourself consistently. In education, this insight has powerful implications. Teachers and students alike must recognize that learning is not only about information, it's about internal communication. The way a student speaks to themselves while studying directly affects how they learn. When a student says, "I'm so bad at this subject," they create a mental block. But when they say, "I'm beginning to understand this concept," they open a pathway for growth. Learning, therefore, is not only cognitive, it's conversational. The same applies in leadership, entrepreneurship, and personal development. Great leaders do not just act confidently, they have trained their self-conversation to align with confidence. Before they speak to a crowd, they have spoken to themselves. Before they lead others, they have led their own mind. They remind themselves daily of their vision, values, and abilities. Over time, those reminders evolve into beliefs, and those beliefs guide consistent behavior under pressure. One of the greatest misconceptions about belief is that it's something you either have or you don't. In truth, belief is built, and self-conversation is the construction site. Every statement you make about yourself adds a brick, either of courage or of fear, over months and years. Those bricks form a mental structure that determines how you live. You don't wake up confident. You become confident by teaching yourself through repeated conversation that you have what it takes. Consistency also builds credibility with yourself. Every time you tell yourself something and follow through, you strengthen trust within your own mind. You start believing your own voice. But when you say one thing and do another, you weaken that inner trust. For example, if you keep telling yourself, I'll start exercising tomorrow, but never do, your subconscious mind learns not to take your words seriously. But when you say, I will start today, and you actually do, your subconscious begins to see your words as reliable. Over time, this self-consistency breeds integrity, and integrity produces unshakable belief. Now let's turn this principle into an educational exercise. Imagine keeping a self-conversation journal. For 3 days, record the things you say to yourself when you face a challenge. You might be surprised to find how often you criticize yourself. After awareness comes correction. For every negative statement, write a positive replacement. For example, instead of, I always mess this up, say, I'm learning to get better. Instead of, I don't think I can handle this, say, I'm developing the strength to handle this. Instead of, this is too hard, say, this is a chance to grow. When practiced consistently, these subtle shifts in language begin to rewire your mind. You start believing the new words you're feeding yourself, and that belief changes how you behave. This process mirrors what educators call metacognition, thinking about your thinking. By becoming aware of your self-conversation, you move from being a passive receiver of thoughts to an active director of them. And once you can direct your thoughts, you can direct your life. Remember, behavior does not emerge from nothing. Every behavior has a belief behind it. People who procrastinate often believe, I can't do it well enough. People who lead with excellence believe, I'm capable and prepared. To change the behavior, you must first change the belief. And to change the belief, you must change the conversation. The most successful people across every field, education, business, sports, and art have mastered this cycle. They know that the greatest performance begins with the smallest statement. Before an athlete runs, they affirm their strength. Before a musician performs, they affirm their mastery. Before a student writes, they affirm their understanding. Each act of belief begins with internal dialogue. Therefore, if you want to change your outcomes, begin not with your circumstances, but with your sentences. What you say consistently to yourself will eventually construct the framework for your success or failure. The voice in your head is not a random echo. It's the instructor of your destiny. Speak deliberately, and over time, belief will follow. And once belief takes root, behavior becomes effortless, because you no longer have to force yourself to act in ways that contradict your identity. You simply act as who you already believe you are. In the end, consistent self-conversation is both education and transformation. It teaches you what to believe, and belief teaches you how to behave. Speak wisely, repeat consistently, and you will discover that the most powerful classroom is not made of walls. It's the space within your own mind. Every human being holds within them two worlds, the world of reality and the world of possibility. The reality is what currently exists, your habits, your circumstances, your achievements, and your struggles. The world of possibility is what could exist, the version of you that lives in alignment with purpose, discipline, and destiny. The bridge between these two worlds is not luck, not opportunity, not even talent. It is alignment. And alignment begins with your inner dialogue. Transformation does not happen because you simply want something new. It happens when what you say to yourself and what you seek from life begin to move in the same direction. Too often, people dream of greatness while talking themselves into mediocrity. They desire freedom but speak fear. They wish for progress but repeat words of paralysis. The truth is, your destiny cannot manifest while your dialogue contradicts it. Imagine someone who says, I want to be confident, yet constantly tells themselves, I'm not good enough. Their destiny and their dialogue are at war. You cannot move forward while your own words pull you backward. Real change starts the moment your speech begins to agree with your vision. This is what Myron Golden means when he talks about talking to yourself, not idle self-talk, but intentional conversation that brings your mind, your mouth, and your mission into alignment. In education, we learn that learning itself is a process of internal agreement. The brain changes only when new information finds connection, alignment, with existing knowledge. The same principle applies to personal growth. Transformation requires mental synchronization. Your thoughts must align with your goals. Your words must reinforce your beliefs. And your beliefs must guide your actions. When these three levels, thought, speech, and action, are unified, transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Let's consider an analogy. Imagine a rowboat with two paddles. One represents your inner dialogue, and the other represents your destiny. If you row with only one paddle, say you talk about success but never think in alignment with it, the boat simply spins in circles. Many people live this way. They speak of change, but their internal narrative remains chained to old patterns. To move forward, both paddles must move together. Your inner conversation must match your direction. When you start saying things that align with where you want to go, even before you get there, the mind begins to adjust its course. Psychologically, this process is rooted in what researchers call cognitive dissonance, the discomfort we feel when our actions and beliefs don't align. When you begin speaking and thinking like the person you want to become, your brain feels a tension between who you are and who you're declaring yourself to be. That tension becomes fuel for change. The brain subconsciously starts reorganizing behavior to resolve the inconsistency. It begins to close the gap between your identity and your words. That's why affirmations, when practiced intentionally and consistently, can be powerful tools for transformation. They create dissonance that drives alignment. However, this alignment cannot happen through empty repetition. Words alone are not magic. It's the meaning and consistency behind them that create transformation. Saying, I'm successful while living in constant fear and self-doubt is not alignment. It's contradiction. True alignment happens when you begin to internalize what you say. You repeat the words, reflect on their truth, act upon them, and allow them to reshape your mental blueprint. Gradually, your words stop feeling foreign. They start feeling natural. That's when you know transformation has begun, when your new language feels like home. Consider this: every transformed individual in history, whether an inventor, leader, or thinker, began their journey with a change in inner dialogue. Thomas Edison, when faced with repeated failure, did not say, I can't do it. He said, I've found 1,000 ways that don't work. His dialogue aligned with his destiny as a discoverer. Nelson Mandela, in prison for decades, did not say, I am forgotten. He said, I am preparing. His words aligned with his destiny as a liberator. Transformation always starts inward. The conversations you hold with yourself determine the directions you take in life. In education, students often experience the same phenomenon. The moment a struggling student begins saying, I can learn this, something changes. Their attention increases. Their confidence grows. Their engagement deepens. Their results improve, not because the material changed, but because their dialogue did. When the inner voice aligns with the desired outcome, learning becomes transformation. The same principle applies to life itself. We grow into the stories we tell ourselves. This alignment also redefines failure. When your inner dialogue aligns with destiny, you no longer see failure as final, you see it as feedback. Instead of saying, I failed, you start saying, I learned. Instead of saying, this setback proves I can't, you say, this challenge is preparing me for what's next. That subtle shift transforms discouragement into direction. When your words are in harmony with your higher purpose, every obstacle becomes an opportunity for refinement. The science of transformation through self-talk can also be explained through the concept of reticular activation. The reticular activating system, RAS, is a network in the brain that filters what we pay attention to. When your inner dialogue aligns with your goals, your RAS begins to notice things that move you closer to that goal. For example, if you keep saying, I'm becoming more focused, your brain starts recognizing opportunities, habits, and ideas that support focus. Your reality begins to rearrange itself around your repeated words. Alignment literally reprograms perception. But alignment requires honesty. You cannot speak one way publicly and another way privately and expect transformation. The language you use when no one is listening is the truest indicator of your inner alignment. Many people speak positivity in front of others, but rehearse negativity in solitude. This inconsistency weakens the power of transformation. To align your dialogue with your destiny, you must be truthful even in private. Speak as the person you are becoming, not the one you are escaping. Educators and mentors can help others practice this alignment by teaching reflection and self-awareness. Ask students or mentees to identify what they truly want, their desired destiny, and then examine the words they use about themselves daily. Do those words support that destiny or sabotage it? This simple exercise can reveal whether they are rowing with both paddles or just one. Once awareness grows, intentional speech can begin to replace destructive patterns. Over time, this creates an internal environment where transformation can take root and flourish. Transformation also involves patience. Just as a seed doesn't sprout overnight, new dialogue requires nurturing. You may start speaking words of faith and confidence, but old doubts may still whisper. That's normal. Alignment is a process. Every day you choose your words, you are choosing direction. Some days you may feel the old self pulling you backward, but persistence in positive self-conversation strengthens the new voice. Eventually, the new voice becomes dominant and the old one fades into memory. The beauty of alignment is that it does not demand perfection, it demands persistence. The goal is not to silence every negative thought, but to teach your mind which voice to follow. When your words and your destiny finally align, life begins to respond differently. You attract different opportunities, make different decisions, and carry yourself with a different energy. You become congruent. What you think, say, and do all point in the same direction. That is transformation in its purest form. So if you desire a different life, begin by listening to the life you describe with your words. Do your statements support your dreams or sabotage them? Do you speak as the person you wish to be or the person you've always been? The answer determines your direction. When your inner dialogue aligns with your desired destiny, your mind becomes a compass always pointing toward purpose. In essence, transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about aligning with who you were meant to be all along. Your words are the tuning fork that brings your thoughts and actions into harmony with your calling. Speak with vision. Think with faith. Act with consistency. When dialogue and destiny finally walk in step, transformation stops being a wish. It becomes your way of life. Every person on this planet is in a lifelong battle, though it's not against others nor against circumstance. The real battle is within the contest between your current mindset and your highest potential. The one opponent you wake up with, the one you argue with, the one that questions your worth and challenges your dreams is your own mind. And until you learn to master it, every external victory will feel temporary, every achievement incomplete. To master your mind means to become conscious of how it thinks, speaks, reacts, and chooses. Most people live with their mind, but few live in control of it. The difference is awareness. When you live with an untrained mind, it behaves like an untamed horse, powerful but unpredictable. It runs wherever it wants, often dragging you into fear, doubt, distraction, or negativity. But when you master your mind, you become the rider. The same energy that once caused chaos now creates direction. This idea is at the core of all education, philosophy, and personal development. In ancient teachings, mastery of the self was always considered the first victory. The Greeks called it know the self. In Eastern philosophy, it was called mindfulness. In modern psychology, it's called self-regulation. The names may differ, but the principle remains: you cannot lead your life, your work, or others until you can lead your own thoughts. Let's think of the mind as both a tool and a territory. As a tool, it helps you think, plan, imagine, and solve problems. But as a territory, it contains both fertile fields and rocky grounds. In some areas, your mind supports you with courage and vision. In others, it traps you with fear and doubt. Mastery begins when you explore this inner territory with honesty, when you begin asking, what kind of thoughts dominate my mind daily? What do I feed it with? What beliefs shape its boundaries? Only through self-examination can you begin the work of mental mastery. Most people try to change their external conditions. A new job, a new relationship, a new city, yet take the same untrained mind wherever they go. The result: the same problems follow them in new forms. True transformation begins when you stop trying to manage the outside world and start training the inner one. Because no matter where you go, you always live with yourself. You carry your thoughts like a shadow, and that shadow is shaped by what you've accepted as truth. In education, this is the foundation of what psychologists call metacognition, thinking about your thinking. It's the process of observing your own mental patterns and asking, why did I react that way? Or what belief made me think that? When you engage in metacognition, you step outside your automatic mind and become the observer. This distance gives you power. You are no longer the prisoner of your thoughts. You are their teacher. Myron Golden emphasizes that before you can speak success, you must think success. Before you can act with confidence, you must train your mind to believe in your capability. That's why talking to yourself is such an essential practice. It's not about ego, it's about education. You are re-educating your mind to obey purpose instead of fear. Mastering your mind means refusing to let it wander into self-sabotage. It means becoming intentional about what thoughts you allow to stay and which you must dismiss. Let's consider an example. Imagine you are preparing for an important exam, business presentation, or performance. Your untrained mind begins to whisper, you might fail, you're not ready, you always mess things up. If you let those thoughts lead, your body will follow, nervousness will rise, confidence will drop, performance will fall. But if you are practicing mastery, you notice the thought and challenge it. You respond, I have prepared, I am capable, I've succeeded before, and I'll do it again. The moment you take control of the dialogue, you shift your emotional state and your performance follows. That's mastery, not the absence of fear, but authority over it. Mastering your mind also requires discipline over three powerful areas: focus, emotion, and meaning. Focus determines where your energy flows. An undisciplined mind scatters attention across distractions: social media, comparison, gossip, worry. A disciplined mind directs focus toward growth, goals, and gratitude. Every minute spent focusing on negativity is energy stolen from possibility. Mastery means learning to refocus, to redirect attention to what truly matters. Emotion shapes the quality of your thoughts. When your emotions are unmanaged, they color your perception. Anger makes small problems look huge. Fear magnifies obstacles. Mastery does not mean suppressing emotion. It means understanding it. It's the ability to pause, to breathe, and to decide before reacting. This is why emotional intelligence is one of the highest forms of education. To master your mind is to educate your emotions. Meaning is perhaps the most transformative area of mastery. Events in life are neutral. It's the meaning you attach to them that defines your experience. A failed attempt can mean, I'm not good enough, or it can mean, I'm learning something valuable. The event is the same, the meaning is chosen. A mastered mind chooses empowering meanings. It interprets struggle as training, not tragedy. That's how people who've faced immense adversity still rise. They control the meaning their mind assigns to pain. In neuroscience, this process is supported by the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision, making and emotional regulation. When you pause and reflect before reacting, you activate this higher region of the brain. When you act impulsively or negatively, the lower brain, the amygdala, takes over. Mastery is the art of choosing which part of your brain gets the final say. It's the ability to interrupt automatic reactions with conscious intention. One of the most powerful exercises for mastering your mind is silence. In silence, you hear the noise of your own thoughts. Most people avoid silence because they don't want to confront that noise. But the mind you refuse to face is the one that controls you. Spend a few minutes daily in quiet reflection. No phone, no music, no conversation. Just listen. Notice what your mind says. Then decide, do I want to keep thinking this way? Over time, this practice builds self-awareness, and awareness is the first step toward mastery. Another practice is gratitude journaling. Gratitude shifts the mind from lack to abundance. When you focus daily on what's good, your brain starts to search for more good. This rewires your mental patterns from negativity to optimism. You're not ignoring problems, you're retraining perception. Mastery is not about pretending life is perfect. It's about training your mind to look for possibility even when life is imperfect. In education, teachers who help students develop a growth mindset are essentially teaching mental mastery. They show learners that intelligence and ability are not fixed. They can expand through effort and attitude. This idea, popularized by psychologist Carol Dweck, aligns perfectly with Myron Golden's principle, the first mind you must master is your own. When a student learns to say, I can improve, instead of I'm not smart enough, they've already begun mastering their mental environment. But mental mastery is not a one-time achievement. It's a continuous practice. The mind is like a garden. If you stop tending it, weeds will grow again. Doubt, fear, laziness, and negativity will always try to return. That's why mastery requires maintenance, daily affirmations, reflection, learning, and discipline. You don't control every thought that enters your mind, but you control which ones take root. Ultimately, mastering your mind means reclaiming authorship over your story. You stop letting circumstances write your narrative, and you begin writing it yourself. When you master your mind, your external environment loses control over your internal peace. The economy may shift, people may change, challenges may come, but you remain centered because the one mind you live with obeys your leadership. The greatest education anyone can receive is not in textbooks or lectures. It is in the mastery of their own mind. Once you learn to think clearly, focus consistently, and speak powerfully to yourself, everything else in life becomes manageable. You lead not from reaction, but from awareness, and that awareness is freedom. So before you seek to master business, wealth, or influence, master the one thing that determines them all, your own mind. Because when you conquer the chaos within, the world around you begins to move in harmony. The mind you live with can be your greatest enemy or your greatest ally. The choice and the mastery are both yours.